Over 2 billion Christians worldwide believe that the Bible is a holy book revealing the mysteries of life and the path to salvation. On the other hand, more than 500 million Muslims insist that the Quran is God's ultimate and perfect revelation to humanity. These two beliefs collectively influence nearly half of the world's population, yet their definitions of the source of revelation and truth are vastly different. So, who is right? In this series, we will explore these questions from various perspectives. The origins and authors of the Bible. Who truly wrote the Bible? Was it really a revelation completed by God through humans? The history and manuscript research of the Quran. What secrets do the early Quran manuscripts hide? Has it truly remained unchanged since its inception? The reliability of the texts. Is there evidence of tampering with the Bible? How do archaeology and historical records validate the events? Can the Quran withstand the same scrutiny? The core differences in content and doctrine between the two books. What distinguishes the Bible from the Quran? Why can't the two be simply viewed as equivalent? Before diving into the main topic, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss more exciting content we have coming up. Let's get started. On April 1st, 2011, a sudden violent conflict swept through the United Nations office in Mazar-i-Sharif, Afghanistan. Once considered one of the safest cities in Afghanistan, it quickly became a center of terror and bloodshed. Thousands of demonstrators holding signs denouncing the United States and Israel escalated rapidly, from protest to uncontrollable riot. Angered crowds threw stones at the UN building, then breached the defenses, killed the guards, and entered the building to wreak devastating havoc and set it ablaze. In their pursuit of Western citizens, the rioters even resorted to beheading those they captured. The riot resulted in 12 deaths, including UN staff from Sweden, Norway, and Romania, as well as 4 Nepali guards and 5 Afghan protesters who were killed in the chaos. This bloody incident raises the question, why was an attack on a humanitarian UN agency so ferocious? The spark for the riot can be traced back to an event in Florida on March 20th, 2011, where American pastor Wayne Sapp publicly burned a copy of the Quran. This provocative act, hosted by missionary Terry Jones, who sought to provoke the Muslim world, was recorded and spread worldwide via video. The act quickly incited anger among Muslim communities globally. Upon learning of the incident, the Imam of Mazar-i-Sharif called on believers to protest during Friday prayers, pointing fingers at the United States, which ignited the public's fury, leading the protest to spiral out of control and culminate in the deadly assault on the UN. The most heartbreaking aspect is that the victims of the riot were largely innocent. UN staff, including Nepali guards and European employees, had nothing to do with the Quran burning incident, but paid with their lives due to the rioters' rage. This was not only an attack on an international peace organization, but also a grave affront to humanity. After the incident, world leaders swiftly condemned the actions of the Florida pastor, while also harshly criticizing the violent behavior of the riot. However, notably, almost no one questioned the possibility that burning the Quran would lead to such severe consequences. This seems to be an assumed causation, with one party's provocative act inevitably triggering a violent backlash from the other. Let's compare this with another similar event. In 2009, at the Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, the U.S. military burned dozens of Bibles. The official explanation was that these Bibles were considered trash to prevent accusations of proselytizing to local Muslims. More shockingly, the U.S. government even publicly declared these Bibles as rubbish, thus leading to their destruction. It was later found that these books were donations from a Christian soldier and a related church. However, neither the soldier nor the church group caused a significant uproar or protest, nor did any violent actions ensue. In contrast, the 2011 Quran burning incident by the American pastor triggered a strong Muslim protest worldwide, leading to the Mazar-i-Sharif riot in Afghanistan that resulted in 12 deaths. This stark contrast compels us to ponder, why do such similar actions lead to completely different outcomes? When we explore the different outcomes of burning the Bible versus the Quran, a glaring question arises. Why does burning the Bible not incite violence and bloodshed, yet burning the Quran results in fierce riots? Some may think it relates to the lower education levels of Afghan Muslims, who rely more on emotional reactions. Others speculate it may be because Christians place less importance on their scriptures and even remain indifferent and silent when offended. However, these simplistic assumptions do not reveal the essence of the issue. The true core lies with these two books. The Bible and the Quran are not merely religious texts. Their roles and influences in the lives of believers have fundamental differences. To truly understand, we must explore their essential differences. Watch the video until the end for a more comprehensive understanding of the true nature of these books and how they deeply influence the thoughts and behaviors of believers. Exploring these questions will bring you deeper insight and understanding. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Next, we will continue to delve into the history, beliefs, and cultural backgrounds of the Bible and the Quran to find clearer answers. The origin and sacred status of the Quran. Muslims believe that the Quran is the eternal word of Allah, revealed directly through the angel Gabriel to the Prophet Muhammad. According to Islamic tradition, in 610 AD, while meditating in the cave of Hira near Mecca, Gabriel appeared to Muhammad and commanded him to recite. Muhammad replied, "I cannot recite." The angel then embraced him tightly, nearly suffocating him. This scene repeated 3 times until Muhammad received the first 5 verses of the Quran. Terrified, Muhammad returned home and shared this experience with his wife, marking the beginning of his encounters with Gabriel. Over the next 22 years, from 610 to 632, Muhammad continued to receive revelations until the entire content of the Quran was fully communicated. As Muhammad was believed to be illiterate, he memorized each revelation and preached it to his followers. Initially, these revelations were recorded on scattered materials like parchment and leaves by the believers. After Muhammad's death, these scattered records were collected and compiled into a complete book. Unlike the Bible's multiple authors, the Quran is a singular text revealed to and transmitted by Muhammad alone. The book contains 114 chapters, with at least 6,204 verses, arranged in a sequence from long to short, rather than in chronological order. Thus, the first few chapters occupy substantial space, while the final chapters are typically shorter, sometimes just a few sentences long. Muslims regard the Quran as the eternal banquet of Allah. The original text is believed to be written by Allah himself and stored in heaven. Muhammad's duty was to faithfully convey these revelations without adding or subtracting a word. If any content was altered, the Quran would be considered corrupted and lose its sanctity. A specific declaration in the Quran. Indeed, it is we who sent down the Quran, and indeed, we will be its guardian, is interpreted as Allah's promise to protect its sacred text. Muslims believe that the Quran's content is not only perfect and without error, but also directly protected by Allah from alteration or change. Therefore, only the Arabic version is considered the true Quran, while translations are seen as interpretations or explanations of the original text, not equivalent to the original itself. The Quran holds an unshakable position in the heart of Muslims, based on 4 major beliefs. It is eternal, transcending time as Allah's eternal banquet. It is revealed by Allah, with the text directly conveyed by the angel Gabriel to Muhammad. It is complete, with all revelation content fully preserved, without omission or loss. And it is unaltered, with the text never experiencing any tampering or change since its inception. The core pillar of these beliefs is the Quran's absolute immutability, serving as the logical basis for the other 3 points. The compilation of the first Quran manuscript in Muslim tradition began after Muhammad's death in 632 AD, under the supervision of the first caliph, Abu Bakr. He instructed Muhammad's private secretary, Zayd ibn Thabit, to gather all believers familiar with the Quran to compile the scattered revelation content into a book. These revelations were initially recorded on palm leaves, stone tablets, and animal skins. Zayd compiled all the materials and, through rigorous comparison and review, completed the first complete Quran. This manuscript was kept by one of Muhammad's widows, Hafsa. However, this was only the starting point for the Quran's textual development, and subsequent controversies revealed more complexities. As Muslims expanded, believers in different regions began reciting the Quran based on their recorded revelations. However, Disputes arose due to differences in recitation methods and some content between these versions. The third caliph, Uthman ibn Affan, decided to take action to establish a standardized version of the Quran. He appointed Zayd ibn Thabit and 3 other scribes to compile and unify the text, with Hafsa providing her copy for comparison. This process took a year, completed in 651 AD. 20 years after Muhammad's death, Uthman then ordered the production of 5 standardized copies, distributing them to Mecca, Medina, Kufa, Basra, and Damascus, while ordering the destruction of all other versions, including the first manuscript. This move marked the formal unification of the Quran text, but also sparked considerable controversy. For example, why was there a need to destroy other versions? If the early versions were completely consistent, what was the necessity of a unified version? Did the destruction of other versions imply deviations or discrepancies among them? Why was the first manuscript burned? The first version was considered the closest original record to Muhammad during his lifetime. Was its destruction meant to conceal certain meanings? Why did scholars oppose the revised version? Some scholars familiar with the Quran, including Muhammad's most important students, Abdullah ibn Masud and Ubay ibn Kabi, refused to accept Uthman's revised version and insisted on their versions until their deaths. Assuming the Uthman version is indeed the original Quran received by Muhammad, finding one of the 5 original copies made during Uthman's time would be crucial to confirm the consistency of today's Quran text with the initial version. However, Muslims generally believe that 6 manuscripts preserved to this day may be related to Uthman's time, including the Ma'al Quran in London, the Samarkand Quran in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, the Topkapi Quran in Istanbul, Turkey, the Cairo Quran in Al-Hussein Mosque, Egypt, the Paris Quran in the National Museum of France, and the Sana'a manuscripts discovered in Yemen in 1972. These manuscripts are considered the oldest and most complete existing Quran texts. But until recently, scholars primarily had the opportunity to study only the London Ma'al Quran and the Paris Quran. It was not until 2002 that 2 scholars specializing in Quran studies were able to conduct in-depth analyses of other manuscripts, concluding their research in 2007. The research indicates that most of these manuscripts can be dated to the early Umayyad period, the late 7th century AD, later than Uthman's time. This means they are not the original manuscripts or direct copies from Uthman's time. Take the Topkapi manuscript. Research found it dates back to the mid-7th century AD, later than the Uthman version. Although this manuscript is considered one of the most complete and important early Quran manuscripts, its actual content retains only 99% of the Quran text, with 78% readable. Within this content, researchers identified up to 2,270 differences from the modern Quran Hafs version. These findings further suggest that what is now called the Uthman version manuscript is actually a later copy, not directly from the original version of Uthman's period. The Samarkand Quran in Tashkent dates back even earlier, traceable to the early 7th century AD. However, this manuscript only contains the first 43 chapters of the Quran, while the modern Quran has 114 chapters. There were rumors that this manuscript belonged to Uthman himself and bore his bloodstains, but research confirmed it was completed at least 50 years after Uthman's death, and the bloodstains were proven to be fake. Additionally, this manuscript contains numerous writing and grammatical errors, reflecting the scribe's low level of Arabic. The Ismail Quran preserved in the British Library in London is similar, containing only up to chapter 43, missing more than half of the modern Quran's chapters. Its dating is close to the Samarkand Quran, traceable to the early 8th century AD. The Cairo Quran in Al-Hussein Mosque is believed to date even later, possibly belonging to the 9th century AD. The Paris Quran, after research by Professor François Desroches, is determined to date to the early 7th century AD, containing only 45% of the modern Quran's content, with 93 differences identified. The discovery of the Sana'a manuscripts in 1975 was undoubtedly a major breakthrough in Quran research. Through ultraviolet analysis, the text was revealed to have 2 layers, with the upper text traceable to the early 8th century AD and the lower text belonging to the early 7th century AD. This discovery clearly shows that the Quran text underwent significant modifications and changes between the 6th and 8th centuries AD, with more than 1,000 differences from the modern Quran version. American scholar Dr. Dan Brubaker further researched Quran texts, including 6 major manuscripts and 4 additional ones. He found numerous signs of later additions, erasures, and modifications, with some erased content replaced by new text, and others directly overwritten with new text on the original, allowing both texts to be visible. Additionally, some manuscripts have patches with new content written on them. Dr. Brubaker recorded over 2,000 revisions, and the total number of such modifications now exceeds 4,000. These findings indicate that even 200 years after Uthman's reign, the Quran text was still undergoing standardization processes. The modern Quran version, the Hafs version, was confirmed and edited by a group of Muslim scholars at Cairo's Al-Azhar University in the 20th century. This version is considered the standard version without any contradictions, in memory of the renowned 7th century reciter, Hafs. However, since Hafs' manuscript itself has not been preserved, we cannot directly compare whether today's text is true to his version. The above research shows significant differences between the modern Quran text and early manuscripts, challenging the claim of absolute immutability that cannot withstand historical and academic scrutiny. These findings further demonstrate that the Quran standardization process was not accomplished overnight, but underwent centuries of revisions and adjustments. Can the Bible withstand the same rigorous scrutiny? The Bible, derived from the Greek word for book, is not a single book but a collection of 66 books revered as sacred scriptures by Christians. The Bible's authors number over 40, representing a wide range of professions, including fishermen, kings, scholars, shepherds, priests, officials, tax collectors, and doctors. They came from vastly different social backgrounds and educational levels, with most living in different eras, without knowing each other. The entire Bible was written over 1,500 years, with the earliest author believed to be Moses, Israel's leader and liberator, and the last being John, a Galilean fisherman and one of Jesus' 12 apostles. The collection was written in 3 languages: Hebrew, mainly used for the 39 books of the Old Testament, with a small amount of Aramaic, and Greek for the 27 books of the New Testament, the lingua franca of the Roman Empire at the time. As an ancient anthology, the Bible encompasses various literary genres such as chronicles, poetry, narrative, prophecy, epistles, and legal documents, sometimes intertwining multiple genres within the same book. This diversity gives the Bible immense literary and cultural value. Despite the numerous authors and writings spanning millennia, the Bible demonstrates remarkable consistency. This consistency is not easily explained, which is why Christians believe the Bible's true author is the Holy Spirit. Prophets were merely the instruments through which God communicated his message to humanity, making the Bible a sacred book transcending time and space. The Apostle Peter wrote, "We also have the more sure prophetic word, and you will do well to heed it as a light that shines in a dark place." For prophecy never came by the will of man, but holy men of God spoke as they were moved by the Holy Spirit. Christians believe God's revelation was not directly transmitted word for word to the prophets, but inspired them on a mental level, allowing them to express it in their own language. With the exception of God's direct words explicitly recorded in the Bible, the authenticity of the Bible's text has long been debated. Some argue that the Bible's content was altered during its transmission, with some passages intentionally deleted or added. So, is the Bible we have today a genuine work of divine origin, or is it an edited forgery? To answer this question, we must trace back to the earliest manuscripts of the Bible. It is crucial to note that there are no original manuscripts directly written by Moses, Jeremiah, or Hosea. This is primarily because ancient writing materials like papyrus and parchment are highly perishable, making them challenging to preserve for millennia. For example, the original manuscripts of books like Samuel have long been lost. For a long time, the authenticity of the Old Testament text was questioned because the existing versions are primarily based on copies from around the 10th century. A typical example is the Leningrad Codex, the most complete Hebrew Bible manuscript, produced by a scribe named Samuel ben Jacob in AD 1008. These copies were produced by the Masoretes, a a group of Jewish scholars from the 6th to the 10th century. They were responsible for ensuring the Bible text's accuracy, meticulously copying and annotating the correct pronunciation, preserving the integrity of the sacred text for future generations. Since Hebrew had ceased to be a spoken language in ancient times, and its writing system retained only consonants, interpreting the text relied heavily on context clues. This situation meant the same text could be interpreted in different ways. To prevent misunderstanding and protect the correct interpretation of the text, the Masoretes introduced points, short lines, and small symbols to indicate vowel pronunciation. This system not only fixed the traditional pronunciation of the text, but also effectively prevented potential misunderstandings and misinterpretations by future generations. To ensure the text's absolute accuracy, the Masoretes devised a system for counting letters and words. They would count the number of letters and words in the text and verify them after copying. If any errors were found, they would be noted in the margins or summarized at the end of the book. More strictly, if the final count was still inconsistent, the entire manuscript would be discarded, and the scribe would have to start over. The Masoretes held each letter of the Bible text in high reverence, believing that the Old Testament's content was divinely revealed to the prophets, making every letter crucial. While this attitude may not be accepted by everyone, their meticulous approach to textual transmission provided a reliable safeguard for the Bible's content integrity. Despite long-standing suspicions that the original Bible text may have undergone modifications or alterations during its historical transmission, an archaeological discovery in 1947 dramatically changed this view. That year, 3 Bedouin shepherds, while searching for goats in the Dead Sea area, inadvertently discovered clay jars containing ancient parchment scrolls in a cave south of Qumran. These scrolls, after research, were confirmed to be biblical texts from several centuries BC. Subsequently, 12 caves in the Qumran area were discovered, containing a wealth of documents, including 223 manuscripts encompassing nearly all the books of the Old Testament except for Esther. These manuscripts date from the 3rd century BC to the 1st century AD, making them the oldest biblical texts discovered to date. The discovery of these documents is of immense significance, providing crucial evidence for the authenticity of the Old Testament text. Scholars conducted 45 years of in-depth research on these manuscripts and reached a unanimous conclusion that these texts show no major differences from the Masoretic text of the 10th century AD. This discovery clearly demonstrates that despite a 2,000-year time span, the Jews maintained astonishing accuracy in the transmission of the Bible text. Now, let us turn our attention to the New Testament and see if its text can withstand the same rigorous scrutiny. Many people question whether the version of the New Testament we have today retains its original form or has been modified and edited by the Church. However, through scientific and textual research, these doubts have gradually been addressed. Compared to other ancient documents, the New Testament boasts an unparalleled number of manuscripts. To date, scholars have discovered over 5,800 Greek New Testament manuscripts, a figure unmatched in ancient literature. The number of New Testament manuscripts is not only vast, but also closer in time to the original text. Additionally, the New Testament has been translated into multiple languages, including Latin, Syrian, Coptic, and Georgian, totaling over 24,000 copies. Moreover, early church leaders have cited the New Testament over 1 million times in their writings, with these citations nearly sufficient to reconstruct the entire text. Among the 5,800 Greek New Testament manuscripts, while many are mere fragments or incomplete copies, more than 800 complete manuscripts still exist, far exceeding other 2,000-year-old documents. The earliest complete manuscript is the Codex Sinaiticus, discovered at the monastery of St. Catherine on Mount Sinai, dating to the 4th century AD, approximately 300 years from the original text. In addition, there are numerous partially preserved manuscripts, with some fragmentary manuscripts dating only decades from the completion of the New Testament. This evidence suggests that although the New Testament underwent multiple transcriptions over time, its content was not distorted due to the time span. The New Testament text maintained a high degree of completeness and consistency throughout its long transcription history. This reliability is attributed to several factors. Firstly, the preservation and translation of manuscripts were handled meticulously. Scholars were very rigorous in preserving New Testament manuscripts, and those used for translation or research were not discarded lightly. Modern Bible translations are directly based on the original Hebrew and Greek, rather than through indirect transfers from other languages. This method ensures textual accuracy, avoiding errors that could arise from multiple transfers. Secondly, the discovery and research of a large number of manuscripts continue to grow. As time goes on, the number of ancient manuscripts continues to increase, with new manuscripts being discovered and digitized every year. Scholars compare and analyze these thousands of manuscripts, using textual methods to trace the historical evolution of the text and the background of the differences, significantly enhancing the text's reliability. Thirdly, textual differences are benign. According to textual studies, the identified differences in the New Testament mainly fall into the following categories: pronunciation differences, which primarily affect pronunciation and have little impact on the core content of the text; grammatical adjustments, with slight changes in Greek grammar that are difficult to reflect in translation and have minimal impact on the overall meaning; synonymous substitutions, such as using Jesus instead of Christ, which represent different ways of expression rather than changes in content; and meaningful word substitutions. Although these differences are few and mostly appear in later manuscripts, they do not affect the core message of the text. Notably, among thousands of textual differences, the proportion of those that genuinely affect the text's meaning and require in-depth study is less than 1%. A famous example is the number 616 in Revelation, which in some early manuscripts replaces 666. Nonetheless, such differences do not alter the core message of the text. Textual scholars note that two passages in the Gospel of Mark and the Gospel of John may have been later additions, as these passages do not appear in the earliest authoritative manuscripts, and their language and writing style differ from the rest of the book. Although these passages are widely accepted and familiar to many believers, their removal would not affect the core doctrines of Christianity. This transparency in research adds greater credibility to the New Testament. After understanding these textual differences, we can explore the following key questions. Has the New Testament undergone significant alterations? Do later added passages affect the account of Jesus' resurrection? Are passages regarding Jesus' divinity and the Holy Spirit only present in questionable passages or late manuscripts? These questions are essential for anyone seeking to understand the core of Christian faith, and even the skeptical scholar Bart Ehrman has candidly acknowledged that no textual differences in the New Testament transmission threaten the core doctrines of Christianity. This point is crucial, indicating that even in the study of textual differences, the core beliefs of Christianity remain unchallenged. This means that the life, teachings, death, resurrection, divinity of Jesus, as well as the apostolic witness of future events, have been accurately recorded and transmitted, preserved intact for centuries. While some passages may be controversial, such as those considered later additions, their presence or absence does not overturn Christianity's fundamental doctrines. Through in-depth research of ancient Bible manuscripts, scholars unanimously confirm that neither the Old Testament nor the New Testament text underwent significant alterations during its long historical transmission. This fact provides strong support for the Bible's credibility. Moreover, the Bible contains a wealth of specific historical information, including people, names, dates, events, kings, peoples, and geographical locations. These details' accuracy can be verified through the works of ancient historians and archaeological discoveries. For example, the basic life, death, and resurrection of Jesus can even be corroborated by non-Christian literature from the 1st century. For a long time, many details in the Bible were suspected of lacking historical basis. However, archaeological discoveries over the past 150 years have fundamentally changed the academic perspective. These discoveries not only challenge skeptics' views, but also confirm the authenticity of many biblical narratives. Here are some key archaeological evidences. 1. Some scholars believe that the Pentateuch could not have been written by Moses because writing had not been invented during his lifetime in the 15th century BC. However, the discovery of clay tablets in the Ebla Kingdom in 1974 confirmed that writing existed as early as the 20th century BC. This discovery completely overturned doubts about the origin of writing, providing a solid foundation for the possibility of Moses' authorship. 2. The Bible describes the walls of Jericho falling outward, but historians doubted this. However, excavations by archaeologist John Garstang showed that the walls of Jericho had indeed completely collapsed outward, allowing invaders to enter, a phenomenon highly consistent with the supernatural description in the Bible. Point 3. 5 cities mentioned in Genesis were once thought to be mythical, yet Ebla tablets explicitly mention these cities by name, and their order matches the Bible, providing evidence of these cities' historical authenticity. Point 4. Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrian Empire, was once believed to be non-existent due to a lack of historical records. In 1847, British archaeologist Austen Henry Layard discovered the ruins of Nineveh in northern Iraq, including the Palace of Sennacherib, thoroughly confirming its historical authenticity. 5. The historical authenticity of King David was long questioned until the discovery of the Tel Dan stele in 1993, which mentioned the House of David, providing direct evidence that King David was a real historical figure. Point 6. The Pool of Bethesda mentioned in the Gospel of John was once considered fictional, yet the discovery of its ruins in the Old City of Jerusalem in 1888 matched John's description, including the depth of the pool and the 5 covered colonnades. Point 7. The historical authenticity of Pontius Pilate was also questioned until a stone inscription discovered in Caesarea in 1961 and a ring inscription deciphered in 2018 explicitly recorded his name and position, confirming the accuracy of the biblical account. 8. Luke's accounts in the Gospel of Luke and the Acts of the Apostles contain numerous historical details once considered error-ridden, yet archaeological discoveries repeatedly verified their accuracy. For example, Luke correctly identified the territory of Lystra and Iconium, despite early Roman records contesting this. He accurately used titles like proconsul and tribune, later confirmed by inscriptions. The term for the governor of Achaia was also validated by an inscription in Delphi. Archaeologist Sir William Ramsay concluded, "After 30 years of study, I have come to the conclusion that Luke is not only a reliable historian, but should be regarded as one of the greatest historians of the world." The ultimate result shows that under the strict test of modern textual research, the Quran's claim of its eternal, absolute immutability, and precise transmission is challenged by the findings of multiple modifications in its ancient manuscripts, dealing a significant blow to its credibility. Additionally, the Quran's lack of verifiable historical and archaeological details makes independent verification of its content nearly impossible. In contrast, the Bible never claimed to be absolutely perfect, yet it has gained widespread recognition for its exceptional preservation. The core doctrines of Christianity have been preserved intact through rigorous textual transmission, and research on ancient manuscripts brings us closer to the original text. More importantly, the historical details recorded in the Bible have been confirmed by numerous archaeological and historical findings. These evidences not only refute challenges to its account but further consolidate its authenticity. Although both the Quran and the Bible are revered as sacred by their respective followers, their status is fundamentally different. In the eyes of Muslims, the Quran is not just a holy book but embodies Allah's wisdom, mercy, and justice. It is the core reason for Islamic faith, regarded as a divine miracle. However, for Christians, the core value of the Bible lies in its conveyed message, not the book itself. It is a bridge to Jesus Christ, not the endpoint of faith. This is why, when faced with events like the burning of holy books, Christians and Muslims react differently. Christians view the Bible as a medium conveying the message of salvation, while Jesus is the center of their faith, the perfect revelation, and source of redemption, known as the way, the truth, and the life. Friends, thank you so much for taking the time to watch our content. If you find our content valuable, please like and share it with others. We also welcome you to express your views in the comments section. Have your thoughts on the Bible and the Quran changed? Remember to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss more exciting content. Your support is crucial to us, and we look forward to seeing you in the next content.